Welcome back to our channel. That penny in your pocket could be worth millions. A 1943 copper wheat penny sold for over $1.7 million, and rare 1969's double die cents hit up to $1.7 million too. Think it's just a penny? Like and subscribe to uncover hidden treasure. In the early months of 1964, the United States found itself in the midst of sweeping changes. The country was preparing to face a new era, with social movements reshaping its identity, and the mint working tirelessly to meet the demands of a growing population. In this atmosphere of urgency, the familiar Lincoln cent continued to roll off the presses. Since 1909, Abraham Lincoln's profile had graced the humble penny, but by 1964, the coin had already weathered decades of history. The mint had long since perfected its process for striking the copper coins, and yet, even in the most routine of operations, mistakes have a way of slipping through unnoticed. That year, the Denver Mint and the Philadelphia Mint churned out hundreds of millions of 1-cent coins. Most were unremarkable. Most blended seamlessly into the change jars, pockets, and drawers of America. Yet in the churn of machinery and metal, in the hurried strikes to meet quotas, something peculiar happened to a very small handful. The machinery faltered just slightly, the dies misaligned just barely, and one batch of cents emerged with a subtle flaw that would go undetected by mint inspectors at the time. At first glance, these flawed pennies appeared like any other. The same coppery sheen, the same Lincoln visage, the same wheat stalks giving way to the newer memorial reverse. But some sharp-eyed collectors who studied the coins closely noticed irregularities. Tiny doubling on the lettering, an odd shadow effect on Lincoln's date, a whisper of imperfection that distinguished them from the rest. Not that anyone was actively searching for them then. The world was preoccupied with much larger events, and pocket change was just pocket change. It would take another few decades for one of these oddities to truly catch someone's eye and set a quiet but thrilling chase into motion in a quiet Midwestern town in the late 1970s. A seasoned coin collector named Robert flipped through a bag of cents he had purchased from a bank. Robert had made a habit of combing through circulated coins in hopes of spotting rare dates or errors. He never expected much more than a few wheat cents or an occasional steel penny. But this time, something made him pause. The 1964 penny he held seemed strange. The date appeared to have a faint doubling, not quite as crisp as it should have been. He turned it over, squinted under the lamp, and noticed the letters United States, on the reverse almost shimmering, as if doubled over themselves ever so slightly. His heart quickened, though he restrained himself. He'd seen machine damage and worn dies before, commonplace mistakes that added no real value. But this one felt different. Something about the depth of the doubling, its clarity and placement, told him it might be special. Robert took the coin to his modest basement workshop, where he kept his magnifiers, reference books, and years' worth of catalogs. He compared it to known errors: 1955's famous double die, the 1972 cents bold doubling. His pulse raced as he realized this doubling was subtle but genuine, not the result of wear or mechanical doubling. It bore the hallmarks of a true double die error. Yet, there was no mention of such an error for the 1964 cent in any of his guides. The omission only deepened the intrigue. Could it be that he had stumbled onto something undocumented? Could he be the first to truly notice? He felt a strange mixture of pride and unease. After all, even rare finds often languished unrecognized until the numismatic community caught up. But Robert knew he held something unusual in his hand that day, and he tucked it away into a protective sleeve, labeling it carefully as 1964, possible double die. Over the years, other collectors began whispering about 1964 pennies with faint doubling. Coin forums lit up with grainy photographs of cents showing double dates and inscriptions. At first, skepticism ruled. Claims of mechanical doubling or die fatigue were tossed about. But as more examples surfaced with remarkably similar characteristics, the narrative began to shift. Auction houses quietly tested the waters, slipping these error pennies into their catalogs with conservative estimates, only to find them surpassing expectations at sale. From a few dollars above face value, the coins crept up to the hundreds. By the 1990s, documented examples with clear doubling sold for over $1,000 each in pristine condition. The ascent of value was not meteoric but steady, driven by the mystery of a coin no one had properly cataloged for decades. The fluctuations in value mirrored the ebb and flow of the market. As more collectors grew aware of the error, demand increased, but supply remained frustratingly elusive. The error was not widespread, and only a small number of specimens in uncirculated condition ever appeared for sale. Some years the coins would vanish from the public eye, sending whispers through collector circles. Then, unexpectedly, a pristine example would surface in a major auction, igniting fresh speculation and bidding wars. Robert watched all of this unfold quietly, never selling his own discovery, though he received offers over the years. The idea that a penny he found in a simple bag of change could climb into five-figure territory was thrilling. And yet, he never felt ready to let it go as the years passed. The 1964 double die cent carved out its own niche among error collectors. The doubling itself was subtle, less dramatic than the 1955, but no less fascinating to the discerning eye. On the obverse, the date's numerals revealed faint echoes of themselves, particularly the 9 and the 6, which seemed to cast tiny shadows. The word Liberty carried a doubled profile, visible under magnification. On the reverse, United States of America and 1 cent displayed the same telltale doubling, especially in the tops of the letters. It was an error born of misaligned hub impressions during die creation, a classic double die, though a late-stage one, making it even scarcer than its predecessors. And yet, the story of this coin held one more twist that no one had expected. In 2014, a new specimen appeared at an auction in Chicago. This coin was unlike the others. Not only did it feature the familiar double die characteristics, but it also bore an additional anomaly. A small but distinct die crack stretched from the rim into the memorial building on the reverse, forming a delicate, jagged line that collectors dubbed the lightning strike. This crack, perfectly positioned and unique to this single coin, sparked renewed interest and feverish debate. Experts argued over whether it was an entirely separate error or simply a later-stage development of the same double die. Whatever the case, it became the centerpiece of the auction, shattering previous records by selling for over $20,000, an unheard-of price for a coin that once passed unnoticed through countless hands. The discovery of this unique twist injected a surge of excitement into the market. Even collectors who already owned a double die began hunting for examples with the fabled lightning strike, though no second specimen had surfaced since. The 1964 error Pennies' legacy thus became more than just a story of a minting mistake. It grew into a narrative of patience, of quiet discovery, and of the thrill that lies in looking closer. A coin struck in haste during a tumultuous year, overlooked by its creators, would decades later command the fascination and respect of a whole community. And for those who still search through rolls of pennies today, there is always that quiet possibility that they too might spot the subtle doubling or even, perhaps, catch a glimpse of that singular jagged crack. A reminder that sometimes, even the most ordinary objects can conceal extraordinary stories. In 1985, the United States was deep into an era of transition, caught between the echoes of the past and the dawning of a new technological age. The Lincoln cent, by then, had already been circulating for over 75 years, with countless billions minted since its debut in 1909. Yet, even as the familiar copper-coated zinc coins rolled steadily off the presses, the mint faced mounting pressure to produce at unprecedented volumes. Both the Philadelphia and Denver mints worked around the clock to keep up with demand, churning out pennies by the hundreds of millions that year. The design remained unchanged: Abraham Lincoln's steadfast profile on the obverse, the stately Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But in the rush to meet quotas, cracks in perfection began to show. It was within this rush that something unintended slipped past the vigilant eyes of inspectors and into the hands of the American public from the outside. These error coins betrayed nothing of their uniqueness to the casual spender. They passed through cash registers, rattled in pockets, and slipped into piggy banks just like every other cent. Few noticed the strange doubling on the obverse, where the date and motto bore faint but telling shadows of themselves. Even fewer caught the odd impressions on the memorial's columns, where the outlines seemed slightly off-kilter. And so, for years, they remained hidden in plain sight, mistaken for nothing more than ordinary change. The mint, for its part, made no acknowledgement of any significant error that year. To them, the 1985 mintage was just another routine success in the mid-1990s, a young collector named Daniel began his foray into numismatics much as many do, by sorting through jars of coins his grandfather had saved. He enjoyed the ritual of inspection, the quiet thrill of finding wheat cents or the rare steel issue from 1943. One afternoon, he opened a dusty coffee tin labeled simply Pennies and began to sift through its copper and zinc contents. Dozens of coins bore the date 1985, as one might expect, but one particular cent seemed off to him. The lettering on Liberty caught his attention first. Its edges were doubled faintly, like a shadow behind each letter. He turned the coin under the light, feeling a rush of curiosity. The date showed the same effect, and the tops of the numbers revealed soft echoes of themselves. To the untrained eye it might have seemed inconsequential, but Daniel's heart quickened. He remembered reading about double die errors and how they sometimes slipped unnoticed into circulation. Unsure but hopeful, he brought the coin to a local coin shop, where the owner peered at it through a loupe. At first, the man dismissed it as mechanical doubling, a common and often worthless result of worn dies. But as he turned the coin and studied it longer, his expression changed. He called over a colleague, who confirmed his suspicion. This wasn't mechanical at all. This was a double die, a genuine minting error. Daniel could hardly believe it. He bought a protective holder on the spot, slipping the penny into its snug plastic shell, his hands trembling just slightly. It wasn't yet clear just how rare the coin was, but even then, he knew he had stumbled on something remarkable. The collector in him was alive with possibility, and he began to wonder how many others like it might be out there, quietly hiding in drawers and jars across the country. Word of the 1985 double die began to spread slowly through the numismatic community. Forums and newsletters started to feature grainy photos of the odd doubling. At first, skepticism ruled the day. After all, 1985 wasn't known as a banner year for errors, and many collectors dismissed reports as confusion over machine doubling. But as more examples surfaced with the same consistent features, the doubling on Liberty, the date, and even portions of the memorial on the reverse belief grew. By the early 2000s, certification services like PCGS and NGC began recognizing and grading confirmed specimens. That recognition ignited demand, and prices, modest at first, began their climb. What started as pocket change soon fetched $50, then $200, then over $1,000 at auction for particularly sharp uncirculated examples. Yet, the climb was far from over.in the years that followed. The coin's value continued its slow but determined rise. Auctions began listing the 1985 double die as a featured item, and bidding wars erupted among collectors eager to own a piece of the quiet anomaly. Daniel, still holding on to his original find, watched with growing amazement as the coin he'd fished from a coffee tin one afternoon grew more and more coveted. He occasionally received offers, some modest, others tempting, but he always declined, feeling a personal connection to his discovery. To him, the story of finding it was as important as the coin itself. The error's physical characteristics were subtle but distinctive. On the obverse, the doubling was most visible on the word Liberty, where the letters carried soft but undeniable shadows. The date, particularly the 9 and 8, bore faint outlines as though struck twice. Even the motto, "In God We Trust," showed delicate doubling in certain specimens. On the reverse, closer examination revealed minor doubling in the columns of the Lincoln Memorial and the inscriptions above and below. It was a classic double die error, created when the die itself was struck off-center during its hubbing, leaving it to transfer a doubled image to the planchets it struck. The result was a coin that appeared perfectly ordinary to the naked eye, yet told a story of imperfection under magnification. Then came an unexpected twist that nobody had predicted. In 2017, a unique specimen surfaced at a major auction in Baltimore. Unlike previous finds, this particular 1985 double die bore an additional quirk: a small die chip on Lincoln's shoulder, forming what appeared to be a faint, raised blob of metal, almost like a tear or a raindrop resting there. This unique variation electrified the crowd at the auction. Not only did the coin exhibit sharp, unmistakable doubling, but it also carried an additional feature never before seen in conjunction with the error. Some began calling it the Weeping Lincoln cent, and the bidding reflected the fascination it inspired. The hammer fell at a record-shattering price, and whispers about the potential of the 1985 error grew louder. Today, the 1985 double die cent stands as one of the more elusive and intriguing errors of the late 20th century. For those who know where to look, it remains a tantalizing possibility lurking among the billions of pennies still in circulation. And for the fortunate few who discover one, its value is no longer in question. At auction, verified specimens now command between $36,000 and $108,000, depending on condition and clarity of the doubling. From a single cent once dropped into a coffee tin to a five-figure treasure coveted by collectors across the world, the journey of the 1985 double die is a quiet testament to the hidden stories still waiting in the coins we carry every day. By 1996, the Lincoln cent had already become a quiet fixture of American life, circulating in staggering numbers, its familiar copper-plated surface barely noticed by the millions of hands it passed through each day. The United States Mint continued its relentless production, with billions of pennies struck that year at Philadelphia and Denver. The design remained unchanged since the switch to the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959 and the 1982 transition from nearly pure copper to a copper-plated zinc composition. The process by then was mechanical perfection, or so it seemed. Presses struck planchets at lightning speed, dies were inspected regularly, and errors were believed to be few and minor. Yet, amid this modern efficiency, something unexpected found its way into the world. A mistake so subtle it took years before collectors even realized what had happened at a first glance. The 1996 cent gave no hint of its anomaly. Lincoln's profile stared forward as always, framed by the crisp legend "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1996 to the right. The reverse showed the iconic Lincoln Memorial, with its rows of columns rendered in fine detail. To a hurried shopper or a cashier, it was indistinguishable from the rest. Yet for those who knew where and how to look, there were whispers of strange doubling in the details, a slight misalignment in letters, even hints of ghost-like impressions lingering where none should be. But these whispers remained just that for some time. Unconfirmed anecdotes, dismissed as poor strikes or circulation it wasn't until several years later that a collector named Emily, who had only recently begun her deep dive into error coins, stumbled upon something unusual. She had been searching through rolls of pennies she bought from the bank every weekend, hoping to find a wheat cent or perhaps one of the well-known double dies of earlier decades. One rainy evening, with a bright desk lamp and a magnifying glass, she rolled another copper-colored cent across her palm and froze. The letters in Liberty seemed to shimmer slightly, the edges of each letter faintly echoed just beneath, as if shadows clung to their base. She tilted the coin, and the date showed the same peculiar doubling, subtle but unmistakable under magnification. Her pulse quickened as she inspected the reverse. The tops of the columns on the memorial also betrayed soft, doubled lines, just enough to catch her trained eye. This wasn't post-mint damage, she thought. This was something more. She placed the coin in a 2x2 cardboard holder that very night and began researching every reference she could find. The 1996 double die wasn't yet widely cataloged at the time, but a few obscure mentions in error coin forums confirmed her suspicion. Others had found similar examples, though they seemed scarce, and most were still being misidentified. The possibility of holding something rare, something few even knew existed yet, left Emily restless with excitement. Over the next few months, she scoured her collection and every roll she could get her hands on but found no other like it. Word spread slowly through the numismatic world, much as it always does with new errors. At first, skepticism was strong. After all, the 1996 penny was minted in the billions, and reports of machine doubling were common and often mistaken for genuine errors. But as more high-resolution photos and third-party graded examples surfaced, the community's doubt began to fade. Professional grading services began to recognize and certify the double die variety, and collectors started to take notice. Auctions that once treated the 1996 cent as just another modern piece began highlighting verified examples as marquee items. With recognition came demand, and with demand came value. In the early 2000s, an uncirculated example brought in just a few $100s at auction, a respectable sum for a modern penny but still modest. By 2010, the same type of coin began selling for over $1,000, and competition at auctions grew fiercer. Emily watched all this unfold with a kind of quiet pride. Her original find still nestled safely in her collection, rising steadily in worth with each passing year. The physical characteristics of the error became better understood as more coins were studied. The doubling was concentrated on the obverse, most clearly visible on the letters of liberty and the numerals of the date, especially the 9 and the 6, which sometimes displayed faint overlapping lines. The motto, "In God We Trust," also bore the telltale signs of hub doubling in some specimens. On the reverse, the effect was more subtle but discernible on the upper portions of the memorials columns and the inscription above. It was a textbook doubled die, created when the working die had shifted slightly between strikes from the hub, imparting a doubled image that transferred to the coins it struck. Yet what surprised everyone came years later, when a unique specimen surfaced with an additional and unexpected feature. This particular coin, discovered by a dealer in Ohio in 2018, not only exhibited the doubling on both sides, but also carried an extremely fine die crack arcing across Lincoln's coat, almost resembling a faint sash. This combination of doubled die and dramatic die crack made it a one-of-a-kind find, further fanning the flames of collector interest and sparking debate over just how many more variations might still be out there. The 1996 double die cent remains a hidden gem among error coins, quietly waiting in circulation or long-forgotten jars and drawers to be discovered by those patient and observant enough to notice. For Emily, her discovery remains one of her proudest moments as a collector, not just for its rarity but for what it represents. The thrill of finding something extraordinary where most see only the ordinary. As the years have passed, the value of the 1996 double die has climbed to heights few anticipated when it first appeared. Today, verified examples of this fascinating error regularly sell at auction for between $32,000 and $102,000, a remarkable testament to how even in an era of mass production and mechanical precision, there is still magic to be found in a single cent.